I'll do my own introduction. My name is Racheli. As far as English, I was born and raised in Israel, so whatever English there is, that's what you get. Accent is part Israeli, part Brooklyn, whatever. This building is Matan. Anybody tell you anything about Matan? So Matan is part of the rejuvenation of women's Torah world. It's been going on for a few decades. It's not brand new. And Rabbanit Bina, Malka Bina, Rav Bina's wife, is the founder of this Bet Midrash up here. And besides offering Torah to whoever's interested, there are a few programs of women that are learning long-term, many hours of halakha, Talmud, each program and its specializations. But you're sitting under a bunch of that are learning that there. Also, you might also know that there's TPA here, and that's a different story. But closer to your... TPA is the Bnei Akiva program that is affiliated with Matan for its studying part. But Matan for itself is a Bet Midrash, and many women learn here, a lot of Torah, long-term, and good stuff going on. So I'm part of the staff here in Matan, and they live in Nof Elon, that's, do you know Shalavim? That's where it is. That's the introduction. What I'd like to do, Bezrat Hashem, if it works with you, is not to give any speech, because I don't have a text of any speech. And also it would be terribly, terribly boring for me to repeat myself or stuff like that. I would like for us to have more of a discussion, a dialogue, if I get to hear you, if I get to respond to you, if there's anything that's interesting to you. The way we'll do it is we'll start out with a video clip, not the one you saw on the way, something that describes, at least visually, some of the events of the summer of 3.5 years ago. Now, that makes you might have just finished 9th grade there or something like that, I don't know exactly. So I can't even know for you if it's a very distant memory, if you never heard the story, if you were very involved. Any action is possible. Even for us as a family that was in the center of it all, sometimes everything feels like it was 10 minutes ago, and sometimes like it's been 1,000 years because so many things happened since then. So we'll start with this video clip, and then I'll probably find a few words to say. And after that, at some point, I'll say, okay, it's your turn. And that's that awkward moment where I'm not sure if anybody's gonna pick up their hand or say anything or ask anything, or we might just get stuck there. So we'll figure that out if it happens. And from there, I'd really love to have, I'm saying this very honestly, I'm using the platform of the story of the summer of 2014. By us it's called Operation Shuvu Achim, to return our brothers, and Operation Protective Edge, Tzuk Eitan. And it started with 18 days of the search for our boys, and another 50-something days of the war in Gaza that was started because of the terror tunnels that were discovered. And that whole summer had a certain narrative to it. And I'm using that as a platform for anything that you'd like to bring up. And it could be things that seem not directly related. And I'm a big girl, I know how to protect myself, so don't worry about being too personal or anything like that. Okay? So that's the introductory. And the last thing I will say is that I wasn't involved in creating the video clip that I'll show you now. So, it was for the shloshim of our sons, and my mind was in other places at that point in time. There is an overemphasis of the families. referring to us, to the Shire family and to Yifrach family. My experience is not that. My experience is that, first of all, the amazing things that happened had nothing to do with the families, but beyond that, every time the limelight or the attention or the public attention lies on somebody for a few more minutes than usual, you find yourself in awe again and again of look at those people and look how they're dealing and look who we lost and over again, I'm quite convinced that there are amazing people all over this country, all over this people. So when you hear the words about the families, take it metaphorically, in the widest sense. It's you people, it's your families, it's people all over around here. So I think I'm done with this talk. Listen.
Speak without a microphone, or I need a microphone?
Good.
I'm good. Okay, great. So basically, light here is also a good idea. If you know where the light is.
Touch it again.
Basically, our story is, from our point of view, it's just a regular Thursday, the last day of school in high schools in Israel, and our second son, Naftali, is an 11th grader. He was just finishing the year, and the last 2 days they were on a field trip, so which is nice because we have many pictures from the last 2 days. But at some point he called us during the day and he said that unlike the way every week he came home Friday morning, he might come tonight because they're coming back for this long field. And we said, fine. And then about 9 o'clock he sent us a text message that he's coming home. It took us about an hour to see that message. And when we finally saw it, we wrote back, great, wonderful, we're expecting you. And 18 days later, when the whole timeline became clear, we realized that our message, our answer, reached his phone 2 minutes after everything was over. But in between, for us, it was the end of a very busy week, and we went to sleep. The next thing I know was 3:30 at night, this banging on the door. I remember looking at my watch and saying, this cannot be good. And finding out that there are police officers at the door looking for a boy called Gilad, that I never heard about before, who's a classmate of Naftali. Turns out that his parents were in touch with him by phone. At some point, the phone contact went, the phone died, and they expected him, and he didn't show up, and they started making phone calls, and the friend said that Naftali and Gilad left school together. A few hours later, we hear about another missing boy, Eyal. He's 2 years older than them. He's 18, and he went to his grandparents. He went to say Shabbat Shalom, and he met them at the bus station. I think maybe within 2 hours, we had the last locations of their phone. And according to the last locations of their phones, it was somewhere in the Hebron area. Now, Hebron is all the way down south from here. Our home is next to Modi'in, halfway between Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. It became very clear what kind of event this is. And over time, that this is a hostage situation, a kidnap situation, and the effort was rolled on to start to find them. This goes in two directions. One is, and it's very important for me to share this, that during those 18 days, we sat with the heads of the army, with the Shin with the intelligence, and the prime minister, and the minister of defense, and any relevant persona, and everybody was very, very honest with us. They said, look, on one hand, there are findings that we constantly find that in the area where we're looking, there are preparations to keep people long-term, like hiding places and food and drink and stuff like that. On the other hand, there's a phone call that Gilad managed to get out of the car, and he managed to say that he was kidnapped. And then there are puffs, and after clearing that phone conversation, those were deemed as shots with a silencer. So at every point there, they said all options are open. Maybe the shots were just to scare them. Maybe they're being kept somewhere. Maybe 2 were murdered and 1 is alive. Maybe they're wounded. Maybe they were all dead. Everything is possible. We are working under the work assumption that we're looking for live people, for live boys. And everything was run like that. Like there's a great clock ticking, and we must find them before something happens. The day before they were found, we went to the Hebron area to meet the soldiers, some of the soldiers. There were thousands of soldiers there. And we met, kids your age, some of them. Some are a year or 2 older. And they, their eyes were red. They hadn't slept for almost 3 weeks. And they wouldn't stop. They wouldn't stop. And we were saying, we just came to say thank you. And they said in Hebrew, Ma toda, b'shvil zeh atgayasnu. What are you thanking us? This is what we joined the army for. And everything was, a year later, we were brought to the Kharkul area by the army for some closure. This is a part where you can't just drive into because it's part of the Palestinian Authority. And I remember looking at the whole area, and this expression of, we won't leave any rock unturned, whatever the expression in English is, we have the same in Hebrew. There were millions of rocks there, and basements, and water wells, and it was no end of area to search. And again, this recognition ripened of, first of all, what unbelievable mesirut nefesh everybody involved had. Both the soldiers, even the soldiers' mothers, they did what no Israeli mother ever does, and that's call her son and say, don't come back without the boys. Just stay, find them. And again, in my world, it was also chesdei shamayim. It was also a divine gift, which is weird to say because the tragedy is also mishamayim. But I was waiting for my son for 18 days. I met a woman called Rachel Sasportas. Her son was missing for 81 days. There's a soldier called Ilan Saadon. His parents were waiting for him for 7 years. These are all Hamas operations. And there are stories in Israel that never ended. That people that went missing and nobody found them. So at the time people said, the uncertainty is the worst. And I said, I'm willing to be uncertain for 5 years, as long as he walks in here alive. And now that we know that it was over within minutes, it's chesdei shamayim that we got to find them and bring them home. Beyond that, during that period of time, within 24 hours, we started getting phone calls from North America, South America, Australia, Europe, South Africa, like places I didn't even know Jews lived. I spoke to Jews that were living in Kathmandu. Not just regular hikers, just Jews from Kathmandu that were calling to say, we're thinking of you, we're praying, we're with you. And something unbelievable happened as far as people's involvement, I'll say, in a world that's full of bad news, you can't just, every terrible story we hear in the news, you can't just, internalize it and think all the time about the troubles of the world. And here, there were 3 kids that didn't come home from school, and millions of Jews around the world chose to care, and chose to connect, and chose to hope, and chose to pray, and it was almost supernatural. To me, it speaks volumes of who we are as a people, and definitely who we could strive to be. So that's my opening, but that was just, telling a bit of what the experience was. I'm open to take this anywhere, if I'll manage to shut up for a minute, just a second. It's yours. Yeah, thank you, that's chesed. For that.
Here?
Yeah.
I don't think you stopped smiling for a second since you got in the room. I just want to know, like, how did you get to that point? Like, were you always like that? Or was she that?
Okay, thank you. I did that again. I guess disposition in general is a trait of your character. But then things happen and not everything is worth smiling about. The question is, and believe me, I have plenty of the opposite. The question beyond that is how you choose to be most of the time, the rest of the, beyond the very beginning when it's a bleeding wound. When it's a painful wound, but it's not like the blood is flowing, because things happen with time. So I've met many different people over the last 3.5 years. It's something like that. That when you go through something, suddenly you I don't know, acknowledge all the other people that have gone through similar things. Suddenly you meet a lot of people that deal with loss, and I see that everybody deals with their own toolbox. And there are the people that, sometimes they're extreme. Like, I know a family that when I was there, they said, by us, nobody's going to cry. And my understanding of it was that they probably imagined their officer's son looking down at them, and they want to be proper, they don't want to do any, in Hebrew you say fadicha. And then there is, on the other hand, I met a mother that told me that for 5 years she didn't let anybody smile in their hats. Like, nobody's going to laugh here again because of, etc. And then you pray for them, though they should, go to the next stage. They're always the people that come over to you and they say, look, I put a smile on my face for the children, for the grandchildren, I go to work, but you and I know it's just a mess. And over time, I learned to give credit to their mess, because it gives them the power to do what they want to do, to accomplish what they think should be accomplished. Everybody works with their own toolbox. I can describe my world, and it's my toolbox, and it's not judgmental of anybody else's choice. In my world, most of the time, it's about laughing when we laugh and crying when we cry, and try to maintain the full spectrum of maybe the human experience with everything that comes with it, the different shades and different colors. And a person has a choice if they want to take this bucket of black paint and spill it all over their lives. It's possible. Within my life, it sounds to me stupid. And again, I'm not judgmental of anybody else. They have their story. And also, it would be terrible ingratitude for all the blessing that we do have in our life. And in our life, there's this serious, wound, gap, something that's painful, and we deal with it all the time. You don't leave it behind for a second. It's Sherry Mandel, mother of Kobe Mandel, that was murdered when he was 13, told me, it's not about overcoming, it's about becoming. And you take it with you, it's there. But our lives are full of blessing. We have so much blessing in our life. Specifically, I can't say about anybody else. So most of the time, most of life is there's a lot to smile about. And it's a choice you make. You don't have to make it. My mantra, I offer it to whoever it might work for, is in difficult times, is I can feel pain, I don't have to become my pain. I can feel sorrow, I don't have to become my sorrow. And by the way, it works for fear, for pressure, you can feel it, you don't have to become it. And in my inner landscape, there's so many other experiences and talents and powers and dreams and hopes and disappointments and the whole deal. But I think the core experience is I feel very blessed. Not chas v'chalila for losing Naftali. That's not one of my blessings. But there's so much other good that I am thankful for. I don't know if that. Okay. Yeah.
As a religious woman, I assume you appreciate the power of tefillah. So how did that make you feel when all these people got together to daven for your son to come home and all you wanted was your son to come home? Then you saw these tefillahs, I guess you could say, weren't answered. I mean, it didn't work towards what you wanted it to work towards, I guess.
When I'm trying to remember what I felt when I saw those tefillot, I mostly felt very, very grateful and deeply touched because I felt that we're not alone, that we have so many people that care, that so many people that are going out of their way to be with us, to do whatever they can. You know, if they're soldiers, they're searching. If they're intelligence people, they're staying up all night analyzing the pictures from the satellites. And if they're a Jew that could pray, they pray. You're asking about, I'll say, beyond that. When I put my children to sleep during those days, those days were very, very intensive, and so many things were going on. And my neighbors made sure, and my family made sure we had some private time just to eat supper with the kids and put them to sleep. And I remember myself saying Kriyat Shema with them, and joking about, when Naftali comes home, he'll see what a mess he made, and wow, and oops, and then praying, saying Amalach HaGoel, and all those things, and always ending with the pasuk from Shmuel, V'Hashem hatov be'enav yaseh, and God will do what God deems fit to do. I don't know how to translate. Okay. And I can explain that pasuk to a 4-year-old boy, but my youngest son was 4 at the time. It's very simple to explain. We're very optimistic, we're praying, we're doing what we can, we hope for what, it's not up to us. It's out of our hands, and Hashem can do anything. And I remember saying that to my kids, both because that's my, my Shkafat Olam, that's the way I see the world, but also because I was worried about the kids. What would happen if Chas v'Chalila something bad happens? And this is when I was very optimistic. There was this.
Sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry. There was this. At some point, we were by President Peres, passed away in the meantime, and he was about to go to Obama to part from him because he was finishing his presidency, and Naftali was an American citizen, and we wanted to go to speak to Peres. He should speak to Obama because every dominant leader in the world had spoken, except one that happened to have had a citizen being kept hostage. That's what we thought at the time, and he kept silent. So we went to Peres, whatever, and then on the way home, one of the people asked if we should stop on the kotel and pray at the kotel. And when we were there, a bunch of very young kids came over to me and said, we're davening, we're giving tzedakah, we're saying Tehillim, everything's going to be great, they're going to come back, and we're all very... And again, it came to that point of worrying about their well-being, but also worrying about this concept of iyun tefillah. It's a concept from Masechet Brachot that basically means that you can beg, you can do everything. You can't metaphorically try to hyper-focus and force HaKadosh Baruch Hu to do what you want. You can't say, if millions of people around the world have so much kavanah, so this must happen. No, it doesn't, it's actually a issur. You don't approach prayer that way. Okay? Prayer is always, אני מתחנן, I'm begging. I have no power and some. So I happen to have told them something like, I believe they'll come back, but even if something bad happens, I think the words were, stay together, whatever, God, HaKadosh Baruch Hu לא עובד אצלנו. God isn't our employee. Okay? Now, I had no knowledge of it, but somebody, maybe with an iPhone or whatever, somebody videotaped this, and in no time it became viral. And suddenly there was a story of the mother saying that God doesn't work for us. Now, for me it's weird, and it's not a very intelligent way to put this, but it's a simple truth. And I can't tell you how many times people later said, oh, in such and such time I was thinking of what you said, that God doesn't work for us. I said, really, how profound. No, but seriously, it's not even an intelligent way of saying it. But the reason it was framed like that was because, unlike other opportunity where, there was the story of Nachshon Watzman, I don't know if you know, but for 1 week, the country did not breathe. We were all praying for his safe return, and he was actually alive. And in the end, when there was this attempt to release him, he and a soldier that was one of the fighters were killed. And there, Nachshon Watzman's father was quoted by Rabbanit saying that a father's prerogative is to say no. You ask and you ask and you ask and you beg and you beg and you beg. The father can say no. Okay? Which is a very important thing to hear. But that was after the deed. And we had this chance to have this conversation of what tefillah is and how we relate to tefillah and what, while everything was open, while we were still optimistic, while we thought things are going to be good. And that's a different kind of discussion. Because the discussion that's apologetic and just comes to explain why we didn't get what we wanted is a separate one. I never in my life, way before this, I never viewed tefillah as some kind of cash machine. You put in Tehillim one way and you get results the other way. It doesn't work like that. For me, tefillah is something existential. If you conceive yourself as someone who's created, so you keep in touch. If something hurts you, you scream. If things are good, you thank. It's a relationship. For me, it's a dialogue. Some might say it's a monologue. But it's just there by definition of your existence. There is this fascinating material from, I'm sorry, it's a long answer to a short question, I'm sorry. There was something called Aliyah Shniya. These are people, almost the first Zionists that came over the last 100-something years, and they left the old world behind, and most of them were very, very atheistic, thoroughly atheistic. Together with Galut, they left the concept of God and the concept of, a lot of things in the Jewish package. And you read their poetry, and there's these poems where they're yelling at this God that they don't believe exists for forcing me to pray to you, and I don't even believe you're there. It was something so existential that was part of their human being, not whatever. Okay, thanks. Yes.
When it comes to tragedies like this and others, how important do you think it is to move on and not dwell on what happened? And how important is it to look back and learn from that experience?
I believe the words important and dwell and move on have a very judgmental sound to them. And it's not my role, or I'm not sure it's anybody's role, to say to someone else, you should be moving on, you shouldn't be dwelling, you should, whatever. Okay? A person could share their experience or share their understanding, but there's no right way of doing this. I think it's healthier for you, for your family, for getting the best of this life. And in Bezrat Hashem, I was going to say in Bezrat Hashem, living a happy, healthy life, but there are people in the midst of such experiences that think it's some kind of treason or chutzpah or even to offer that you're going to be happy again. Okay? I don't know if you can relate to that. It's like forgetting that there was someone there is someone that I love that is not physically with me anymore. It's like moving on. How dare I? I don't want this to happen, etc. So different people are in different stages and have different toolboxes to deal with life. I can't say a judgmental statement says you have to do this, that, and the other. It's important for you to. I deeply believe that we all have the resources, that we're all able to, that it's a possibility and a choice for each and every one of us. Before I was talking about this black bucket of paint you might be throwing all over your life. Once I spoke to staff of a place that deals with very disadvantaged children, people that went through the worst traumas, okay? And as a person was describing to me something, I felt like this is an objective experience. Life threw at him this black paint. It's not his choice. And as the dialogue went on, it was very clear, yeah, certainly he had his circumstances, and some of us grow up in worse circumstances, etc. Eventually, it's your choice. Eventually, it's your choice if you want to keep this. You don't have to have everything blissful pink, but if you want to keep this varied, colorful, have different shades, or if you want to stick to the black, go ahead. Okay? So, I think it's a divine gift to be able to that each of us has to heal. Stories, okay? During that time, we had a team of negotiators from the IDF that was, one for every family. And these are people that were, any big story in Israel, they were there. Gilad Shalit, Regev Goldwasser, names that don't mean anything to you, some of them. And these people were there negotiating. And they lived with us in our backyard. They were there, to wait for the phone call from the kidnappers and to see how we're doing and to give us, true information, etc., etc. And at some point, we were given the opportunity to listen to the recording of this phone conversation that Gilad managed to get out of the car to the emergency center. Okay, so there was a gag or whatever. At some point, each one of the parents, the 6 adults in this story, had the opportunity to choose if they want to hear or not. Like Eyal's mother, to this day, never listened to it. So it's not constructive. It's not going to get me anywhere. I don't need to hear this. For me, at that point, I was very much into getting every piece of information, and then I'll decide. So I decided I want to hear this, and I approached one of the people in the negotiation team and asked them if they can please prepare me for, emotionally, for hearing this recording. Now, this guy is a psychologist by training, but he also never heard the recording. Okay? It was the first time we were going to listen to it. And he said, okay, Racheli, what are you afraid of? And I said, well, until now I know I was very, very focused, but this might come from a different, I might recognize my son's voice. I might fall apart. And he said, okay, you'll fall apart. Then what? So I thought for a second. I said, well, I guess then I'll collect myself and pick myself up. And he said, that's very true. And those were such simple words, but for me it was so important to hear them, to hear him say, you can do this. And 3 months later, it was Erev Rosh Hashanah, like a couple days before Rosh Hashanah, before the high holidays and Sukkot. And we get this phone call from a woman called Chagit Raim. Her son, Maya, was killed in Lebanon about a little over 10 years ago. And she said, look, I'm just calling to tell you that this anxiety that you're experiencing, this fear of being in the holidays without him, and I don't know, anybody who lost a dear one ever, there's this thing, Pesach is coming up, how could we possibly survive Pesach without him? So she said, I'm just calling to say, this fear, this anxiety, it's worse than the holiday itself. And I realized what she was saying. I heard her. And in fact, she was right. You know, holidays in such a situation are not so much fun. But it's not like I was, you know, with this feeling of how could we survive this. And I put today these two stories together, the story of the recording and the story. And to me, what they mean is that we have a gift. In my world, I call it a divine gift. Someone else could call it whatever it is. We have a gift of being able to heal, of being able to pick ourselves up. It sometimes takes hours or days or months or whatever it is, but it's there. So you're asking, is it the right thing to do? I don't know if it's the right thing to do, but we're able to choose it. It's definitely a possibility. And it takes whatever it takes. And you know, there are a lot of tools. Support is amazing, and all kinds of ideas could help you, and everybody who has some experience could say something. I can't come to someone and say, you have to do so-and-so. Who am I to say? But it's definitely possible. And I think there's a lot of siyata d'ishmaya. There's help.